Are you struggling to find the right wedge for you? You're probably not alone. Come back in just a minute and I'll give you a few tips. Finding the right wedge for your game can save you shots in the round, but it's a minefield out there. Every manufacturer has its own wedge series, and every wedge series is built in different bounces and grinds. So it's very complicated, but it isn't really. Bounce and grind do more or less the same thing. Bounce is the difference between the back of the sole and the front of the sole if I were to measure an angle between them. And the higher the back of the sole, the more bounce you have. They call it bounce because it makes the club bounce. So when you swing through and the club interacts with the turf, it tends to bounce. Now, obviously we don't want our club to bounce, so why in the world would you get a golf club which has a lot of bounce on it? Well, the answer is pretty simple. Sometimes your style of play or the turf conditions mean you need bounce. The club will tend to want to dig in some cases, especially if you have a very high angle of attack, a steep angle of attack on the golf ball. Then the leading edge is likely to catch the ground and want to kind of dig into the ground. On the other hand, if you've got a very flat angle of attack, then a club with a lot of bounce or a wide sole is likely to catch the ground before it gets to the golf ball and bounce. You don't want that. So the trick is basically to know which bounce would actually suit your style of play and which bounce would suit the turf conditions that you play in. If we take two extremes, it's probably easier to understand. If I'm playing on a seaside links and I have a flat angle of attack, then I don't want much bounce on my golf club because the club is likely to catch the ground before I get to the golf ball. It will bounce up and I'll top it. Similarly, if I'm playing on a lush parkland course, which is wet, and I have a steep angle of attack, then I need bounce. And I need bounce to stop the club digging into the ground and to help me to get through the golf ball. Always think of yourself as a human being and someone who doesn't always hit the perfect golf shot. You're always going to have a little bit of turf interaction before the golf ball, and you need the club to help you out there. And that's exactly what they do. Now, if of course, like me, you play on different turf conditions and you're hopefully capable of choosing whether you hit with a steep angle of attack or a flat angle of attack, then you're going to have to go for a mid bounce and a mid grind. And if we just take a quick look at the Callaway wedges, you'll see that there's like 4 different types of grind first of all to look at on the wedges. We could take the Shore Out, which has a very, very wide sole. It's really designed for the bunker, has a lot of bounce on it. Then you have the W grind, which has similarly a lot of bounce on it, but a little bit more of a rounded back. Then you have the S grind, which is more kind of the middle of the road grind, a pretty straight grind, medium width on the sole. And finally, you'll have the C grind, which has the thinnest sole and also a lot of rounding at the back, which allows the player to actually open the golf club up without the leading edge coming off the ground too much. If you're playing in wet conditions with lots of grass, you're going more towards the W or the Shore Out, and if you're playing on hard conditions, you're going more towards the C grind. If you're playing in all conditions, you're going to the S grind in the middle. And whatever wedge manufacturer you're actually dealing with, you'll find a similar kind of combination of bounces and grinds out there. If you're looking for me to help you with numbers, then an average bounce will be between kind of 8 and 10 degrees. A high bounce will be 12 plus, and a low bounce is 6, 7, and anything under that. So again, if you know your conditions and you know the type of shot that you want to play, then you'll know basically the grind and the loft you want to have. In a lot of cases, the manufacturers will make it pretty simple for you, especially if you're looking at things like gap wedges. If you're going in with a 48-degree wedge, you'll probably have to take what they call an F wedge if it's a Foki, and you'll probably have to take an S grind if it's a Callaway. But there you're looking at maybe playing simple, normal, full shots as well with a golf club, so it's built more for that kind of turf interaction. It's when you get into the kind of the higher lofts that you really want to be having a look at the grind. But as ever, really, I would take it out and try it on the golf course before you buy it. What you're trying to look for is this kind of sliding feeling. That means that as you come into the golf ball and it interacts with the turf, you have a feeling that it not only hits the ground but kind of slides through it. You don't feel a great deal of resistance between the club and the turf, and at the same time you don't have the feeling that the club is bouncing up into the golf ball too early. We can obviously talk about technique until the cows come home, but let's be honest here. At this time of year, you want to be getting out there and playing golf, and if you're thinking of buying a wedge, then you've got to buy the wedge which suits your style. So if you are somebody who plays the ball off the back foot and chops down on it, then go out there and get a little bit more bounce and a little bit of a wider grind. If you're somebody who likes to play it off the front foot and keep little hand action in the shot, then you're going to be coming into it flat. You want to have less bounce on it, maybe a little bit of a smaller sole. And that's more or less it. Not very complicated when you know what you're doing. I hope this will help you. If it does, then please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. Hit the little notifications if you want to know when my next video is online. And as ever, I will leave my philosophy on golf up here in the left-hand corner. Very nice to talk to you as ever. I'll be back very soon. Look after yourselves. Till next time. Bye-bye.